they've been in a lot of close ones, and they hadn't won a couple. And you go back and you watch the tape of our game, and it was a very physical, tough game like we usually have with those guys. And then we pulled away in the last 8 minutes. They really handled Florida State. I mean, they played great.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, coming to you tonight from downtown Atlanta at Georgia Tech, where the Clemson Tigers are here to see if they can bounce back from their disappointing loss at NC State to take on a kind of resurgent Georgia Tech team, which has won 2 in a row, including a thrilling win over Notre Dame last time out. Welcome into Sports Talk. Phil Kornblut here. K-Mac, Kevin McCrary back in the studio in Columbia, along with the professor Tom Hayes. And tonight we'll have some time to take some phone calls throughout the show. We've got a little racing coming up for you. In the bottom of the second hour, Chip Wild, president of Darlington, makes his return to Sports Talk after being down at Daytona over the weekend and seeing quite a finish. We've got baseball going on at various points where the weather is not a factor. The weather not a factor too much in Columbia, and the Gamecocks are taking on Appalachian State this afternoon. K-Mac, I know you've been keeping a close watch on that. A freshman pitcher for the Gamecocks getting it done.
Adam Hill, he had himself quite the afternoon. 6 innings, 2 hits allowed, struck out 11 and didn't walk anybody. And, boy, numbers like that, he won't be a midweek starter long.
No, and I heard there was on the grapevine that he had a hot date tonight, and he had to make quick work of his pitching duties so he could get on that date tonight.
Yeah. Gamecocks only have 4 hits, but they have 5 runs on those 4 hits, and they lead 5-0 in the bottom of the 8th, so they're 3 outs away. So an impressive start on the mound for Adam Hill, certainly, as the Gamecocks look to move to 4-0. Appalachian State, a struggling group. They were hammered over the weekend. Coastal Carolina, who's very good, but they hammered up on Appalachian State too. But the Gamecocks are winning the games they're supposed to win, which wasn't necessarily the case, Corn, a year ago. Yeah,
you're exactly right. And listen, of course, you can't get too excited because, as Chad Holbrook pointed out Sunday, when he was talking about being 3-0, he said, well, last year they were 17-3. And then stumbled and didn't make it to the NCAA tournament. So a quick start is great, but it's not the end all because 56 games, a long way to go, but you want to win as much as you can and build as big a cushion as you can. So we're keeping an eye on that. We're going to talk Clemson, Georgia Tech basketball, also look ahead to USC and Tennessee coming up tomorrow night, and the USC women getting another win at Alabama, keeping their SEC record perfect with that victory last night. 800-956-7266. We invite you in on this Tuesday night.
might want to have to move, but anyway, it would just be walking downstairs and walking down the aisle. So, yeah, you might grab that rubber band that's still down there. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey.
See that guy in the kind of stage, quarterback down there? Okay, he's our sports commissioner. I would know about
Yee. Okay, there you go. Okay.
pronounce it McCamish or I think it's McCamish.
But I'll look on their notes, see if they have it. Okay.
It looks like Cameron.
That's what I think too, yeah. McCamish. All right, we're back in Sports Talk here on a Tuesday night in Atlanta for Clemson and Georgia Tech. Should be a very good game. Two teams thinking postseason play. Clemson still hoping to get to the NCAA tournament. Tigers got a lot of work to do, guys, a lot of work to do. The bracketologists out there pretty much have dropped Clemson well down the list in terms of being in the brackets, but they still have a chance if they can win out and especially beat Virginia next week in Greenville. And Virginia lost last night down in Miami, and that was a costly loss for them and a good win for the Hurricanes. And then maybe do a little something in the ACC tournament. Who knows? Who knows? But they need to get it started tonight. Meantime, Georgia Tech looking at an NIT opportunity for them and also looking at trying to save Brian Gregory's job. I got to believe that folks around here are getting pretty restless with the state of the basketball program. It's been a long time since Georgia Tech was relevant nationally in the nationally and in the ACC. So makes for a big game tonight. Both teams should put out a lot of effort, and we'll see. Blossom game was great for Clemson in Raleigh. Put on a great show. He's got to get help, and Clemson's bigs have got to play big. And not be overpowered by the inside people of Tech. And Tech has good inside people, as did NC State, and Clemson couldn't handle NC State's big. So we'll see if they're improved in that area tonight. Phone number 800-956-7266 if you would like to join us to talk about tonight's game, the NCAA tournament, and South Carolina. Maybe a little USC women's talk because they continue to roll along. They can beat anybody in the world except Connecticut, it appears. And maybe they'll get another shot at Connecticut in the NCAA Final Four. USC baseball rolling along this afternoon, leading Appalachian State 5-0. We'll give you an update on that momentarily. And we'll check on some other college baseball scores as well. Coastal Carolina had its game today at Wilmington postponed because of the weather. And we'll check some other scores here in just a little bit involving any other state teams that might be in action. Two finals of note: Louisville beat Eastern Kentucky 14-2, and Virginia, which was all upset over being knocked off by Coastal on Sunday, took it out on VMI today by an 18-1 count. So a couple of ACC teams have picked up wins this afternoon. K-Mac, any major news items that you want to pass along from back in the studios?
No, you mentioned some baseball, and other than South Carolina and Appalachian State, nobody had much luck in terms of in-state teams getting any of their games in because of the weather. It's just a little goofy out there. And I was reading that Horry County schools have canceled classes tomorrow because of bad weather expected down in the Grand Strand area. So keep that in mind. There must be some hellacious storms coming along the way. I haven't looked at the forecast. I it was going to rain, but I didn't realize it was going to get that severe. But I know the games that were canceled, you mentioned Coastal and Wilmington, they're not going to play. Presbyterian and Furman also canceled, and the Citadel at Winthrop were canceled today because of the weather.
All right. Let's see, checking some scores in the ACC. Duke leading Campbell 3-0. Wake Forest is, and that's in the 8th, Wake Forest is leading Davidson by a 6-3 score. So they're able to get their games in so far today, and we'll check some other scores around the SEC if any other games are being played involving SEC teams today. I understand that down in that part of the world, in the southeastern area, Louisiana in particular, are getting hammered by some horrendous weather. One other SEC team is playing, well, a couple are playing right now. Arkansas leading Mississippi Valley 19-3. That's in the 7th inning. Vanderbilt up on Tennessee Martin in the 3rd, 5-1. And that's it for teams in action as we speak. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. So, guys, this Clemson-Georgia Tech game in pro, I know you watched the Tigers on Saturday, and we've seen some good basketball from them. We've seen some poor basketball from them here of late. This is a night where they've got to play at their best, and others have got to step up. They cannot rely on City Jete to be the only other scorer in double figures for them behind Blossom Game. You can pretty much expect Blossom Game to give you now 25 or more points. The way he's going, he's red hot. He's as hot as anybody in the country, really, in terms of scoring over the last 4 or 5 weeks. You can count on him, but can they count on somebody else?
Yeah, and as Avery Holmes goes, it seems like the Tigers go. If he has a big game, if he scores in double digits and is active on both ends of the floor, they seem to do very well. Roper can be streaky when he's knocking down the shots, but it all centers around Blossom Game. Jerron Blossom Game and Michael Carrere, two guys in our state that are really having big seasons that outside of our state aren't getting a lot of national pub. I mean, Carrere is the guy that he's up there. I think he has as many double-doubles this season as Ben Simmons, but he's not getting that same kind of hype, obviously. He's not going to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft, but we're seeing some very good individual play out of some interior guys, some fours for Clemson and South Carolina.
Well, I'm thinking that Clemson probably, Phil, when they had their run, they maximized what they could do. I think the one negative on this season for Clemson, and they have to find out where it is you hate to use that old cliche, but sophomore jinx for Dante Grantham. He just can't seem to get in a consistent rhythm. And here's a guy you thought that when you saw him last year, he was going to take a precipitous step up this year. And, boy, if he had, this Clemson team would really be dangerous. But as they say in basketball, because you got the tournament, all hope springs eternal. So Grantham still has a chance to turn it on. If he does, there's plenty of opportunities for Clemson K-Mac to win games against ranked opponents coming up in the regular season and the tournament.
Yeah, Grantham
to get in the tournament.
He hit a couple of shots last week against Boston College, big threes that they needed in the second half that helped them, and I thought maybe that would get him going, but consistency's been a problem. Corn, I didn't realize until I was reading the AJC earlier today that Clemson is, well, I would say quietly, they've won 12 of the past 13 games in this series against Georgia Tech. The Yellow Jackets players have almost circled this game. They really really want to beat Clemson and turn that streak around.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Now, of course, Clemson beat them in Greenville just a couple of weeks ago, February 13th. So actually 10 days ago, 66-52, and really dropped the hammer defensively in the second half, held Georgia Tech to fewer than 10 made field goals in the second half. Just did a good job of totally taking that game over. But here in Atlanta last year, Georgia Tech beat the Tigers here at McCamish Pavilion. So the home court means something, as we were talking about last night. SEC, ACC, doesn't matter the league. Two teams that are relatively equal, the home court means a great deal. And I love, this is the building that was I guess Dan Radakovich had a great deal to do with the refurbishment of this building. It used to be Alexander Memorial Coliseum, and now it's McCamish Pavilion, and it is just gorgeous. Seats a little over 8,000, and I don't know how often they pack it. I guess they pack it when the big boys come in. I can imagine it gets pretty rowdy in here when it's loaded with fans. But the theater lighting is outstanding. The sight lines are great. The seats are very comfortable. They all are have soft cushions, and I can't tell if they're cushioned backs or not, but they look pretty comfortable. They've got bleachers behind one of the baskets for their pep band and for their students to sit in when the students are here. They are not expecting a large crowd here tonight, I can tell you that. But, if the work at Little John is going to look anything like this when it's completed, and I think that it will, because I got to believe Radakovich is using some of the same ideas there that he used here. It's going to be quite a comfortable building and a beautiful building for the Tigers to play in moving forward. 800-956-7266, our number. We'll be right back. We're in Atlanta and Columbia tonight here on Sports Talk. 800-956-7266. We'll give you recruiting coming up in the next 15, 20 minutes. A lot of things to talk about. USC continues to hand out just a boatload of offers including a player in state, kind of unheralded at this point, but his coach tells me he's a really fine player. And this player will no doubt commit to South Carolina within the next couple of weeks. It's been his lifelong dream to go to South Carolina. We'll tell you about him and give you other recruiting notes coming up in just a few minutes. The state high school basketball tournaments winding down. We are headed towards the state semifinals coming up this weekend. So let's bring you up to date on the brackets. In 4A boys, they're playing tonight in the quarterfinals. Spring Valley at Fort Mill, Blythewood at Burns, Carolina Forest at Irmo, and South Aiken at West Ashley. All right, that's tonight, and they move on to the semifinals this weekend. The 27th. What day is the 27th? The 27th is Saturday. They moved on to the semifinals on Saturday. That's 4A boys. And 3A boys playing tonight, South Point at Seneca, AC Flora at Berea, Wilson and Midland Valley. That game's been moved to Aiken High School because of the large crowd expected. They're going to play at Aiken High School. And Lakewood plays at Marlboro County tonight. That's 3A boys. And 2A boys, we have got games tomorrow. Blacksburg at Abbeville, Keenan at Andrew Jackson, Timberland at Ridgeland Hardyville, and Lee Central plays at Dillon. And then 1A boys, we've got games tonight. Ridge Spring, Monetta, C.A. Johnson, McBee, Calhoun County, Zam Frederick doing it again, Carver's Bay at C.E. Murray, and Hannah Pamplico at Hemingway. Now to the girls. 4A girls semifinals are set at Bon Secours Arena. It'll be Rock Hill against Spring Valley on Saturday, and at the Florence Civic Center, North Augusta against Sumter. In 3A girls, at the Bon Secours Arena on a Friday, it's Wren and Dreer, and at the Florence Civic Center, it's Wilson and Myrtle Beach. In 2A girls, playing tonight, Newberry at Pendleton, Keenan at Andrew Jackson, Bishop England at Dillon, and Battery Creek at Mullins. And in 1A girls, in the semifinals at Bon Secours, Christ Church, C.A. Johnson at the Florence Civic Center, Burke and Timmonsville. And I know you ask, what about the defending state champion, Latta Vikingettes? Went down to defeat K-Mac. Vikingettes no longer reign. Went down to defeat at the hands of the Timmonsville. You know the nickname for Timmonsville?
The Whirlwindettes.
The Whirlwindettes, yes.
They will not two-peat.
The Lady Whirlwinds.
The Lady Whirlwinds take it to the Vikingettes. All right, we'll be right back. Great. Welcome back, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Both teams here at McCamish Pavilion on the floor, going through warm-ups. We're about 25 minutes away from the tip between the Tigers and the Yellow Jackets. 800-956-7266, the number. Coming up in a little bit, we'll do recruiting for you. Then after the top of the hour, in our second hour, Clemson baseball coach Monty Lee. We'll be in touch with him to talk about the season opening series win for them. And they have a few days off before they play again. Don't play again until Friday against James Madison. So we'll have him for you. Chip Wild, the bottom of the second hour. And K-Mac, it's gone final at the South Carolina. Perhaps you'll be able to bring some Chad Holbrook comments to the airwaves.
I would suspect we'll get a little Chad Holbrook, and heck, we might have to get a little bit of the young pitcher, Mr. Adam Hill, as well in the post-game recap. As they're doing the post-game news conferences as we speak. Again, an impressive day on the mound for him. 6 innings, 2 hits, didn't walk anybody, struck out 11, faced 20 batters in his 6 innings of work. So a very efficient and effective day on the mound for freshman Adam Hill, who is going to make those guys pitching on the weekend. That puts a little pressure on them, Corn. That's exactly what Chad Holbrook and Jerry Myers probably like.
Yeah.
On those weekend guys, hey, if you do not perform, we have a guy here in the midweek. Now, it's one start, small sample size, but still a very impressive start. We haven't seen a midweek start like that at South Carolina in a very long time.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate for the Gamecocks that Will Crow is not healthy and able to pitch this year. That would be such a huge boost to the pitching staff. And also, is it Morris, the other pitcher who was out for the year, young pitcher who had the Tommy John surgery, I believe it was, another guy with a tremendous arm. Not having those guys, that's where a young guy like this, if he can do it consistently and not falter when it really starts to get tight, that's when you know when you get into SEC play, everybody knows you much better. They've got by then they've got the book on you. A little bit different pitching then than it is this time of year, but certainly a great start for him. By the way, K-Mac, I wanted to ask you, do you have in front of you, I don't have the stats open up in front of me. Do you have his number of pitches and his strike to ball ratio in front of you?
I don't have it in front of me on this one. It doesn't have that. I'm not in the good. Let me pull it up. I'll have to pull it up. I'm in the CBS Sports, so I need to pull up the stat broadcast.
That's it.
That's a good
one. You get that West Columbia while you look that up. I'll be interested to see what his strike to ball ratio was, number of pitches he threw today. Tommy, welcome into Sports Talk tonight. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing good, Phil. How you doing?
Hey, we're doing great. Thank you.
Hey, I'm calling on behalf of a friend of mine, Terry Lee from Blackville, South Carolina. You ever heard of him?
Yeah, Terry Lee. We used to hear from him pretty regularly.
great wheelchair athlete.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, he loved your show. I'm just telling you, he's looking down on you from heaven tonight, big guy, and he don't make any mistakes.
Oh, I didn't know this. When did he pass away?
Today.
Oh, he passed away today. Oh, my goodness. My goodness. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, I used to enjoy getting his phone calls, and I did not know that his health had reached that point. Anything you can share with us about, what went on with him here of late?
Well, Basil Mack. You remember Basil Mack?
I do not.
Played for BC. He ran track. He held several track. Anyway, neither here. There are no accolades need be explained tonight. But Basil and I went down to see him like 2 weeks ago, and he had just come back from the hospital, and we went in there, and he was his voice was strong. He always had that strong voice. He just you could tell he was weak, and all of a sudden there was down in Blackville, there was this black church that came down. They were singing hymns, and it was kind of a beautiful situation. They were terrific voices, and we were sitting there and said, where in the world is this coming from? And Terry just seemed to get brighter and brighter. And anyway, we told him we were going to head on back to Columbia. We did. We came on back, and our class of 1961 at Brooklyn Casey was very, very close. And we got back and didn't think much of anything. We thought Terry would be with us at least a few more years. But today, one of the girls called and said that he was not doing real well, and wanted to know if Basil and I would go down and see him in Aiken. And I'm here, we're here in West Columbia, and you're not going to tell the girls from BC we're not going to do it. But she said that he wasn't comatose, but he wasn't responding. And I was wondering in my mind, Jan, why in the world are we going to go down there? Let's just wait. But I didn't do it, and I called Basil a little later on. I said, Basil, you want to go down there? He said, Tommy, we'll go. And anyway, we got a call that he had passed away, and he loved your show. He loved your show. He loved you, and he loved your show, and he was a great kid.
Well, I am so sorry to hear the news, and thank you for sharing that with us. And to let us know about any funeral arrangements, things of that nature that the family wants to make public. We'll be happy to put that out there.
Thank you, Phil. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Thank you. And appreciate it. And, of course, our thoughts and prayers out to the family there. Used to really enjoy his phone calls and hear his exploits, what an athlete he was. And even when he was, left, paralyzed, continued to star in many athletic ways. So sorry to hear that news, guys, and thanks for the phone call. Tommy, let's go to K-Mac, you got those numbers for me?
Oh, I do, yes. I do have the numbers. 86 total pitches for Hill, and 59 of them were strikes.
A lot of pitches for a first start for a freshman. They gave him a lot of work out there today. All right, let's go to Bill in Greenwood. Next call up here on Sports Talk. Howdy, Bill. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm seeking just a little information.
Yes, sir.
NCAA appoint the time for Thursday night football games for the colleges, or do the colleges volunteer that that's what they want to do?
The times are set by the television people. So Thursday night, ESPN, for the most part, or whatever network is doing a game, but it's typically ESPN. They tell you when you play. So if they want your game at 7 or 7:30, if it's further out west, if they're doing a West Coast game, they'll tell you what time kickoff is. All game times are set. They, in conjunction with the school and the league and the television outlet, but the television outlet makes the final call on that because they want it to fit their schedule.
I see. Well, tell me, I heard the last word you said a minute ago. What has taken place in the Carolina baseball game? today.
K-Mac, you want to tell Bill what happened in the USC game?
Bill, the Gamecocks won 5-0 over Appalachia State to move to 4-0. That's
All right. Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate your phone call, 800-956-7266. K-Mac, while you've got the notes there in front of you, give me some offensive information. Who led the team at the plate?
Looks like, let's see here, pull up the offensive side. Gene Cone had 3 hits, scored a couple of runs. Marcus Mooney drove in a pair of runs, had a hit. Let's see. Those are they didn't have, they only had 5 hits, and 3 of them were from Gene Cone. So they didn't have a ton of offense, but they were very efficient getting 5 runs on those 5 hits.
And Appalachia State was kind to commit 2 errors.
They did commit a couple of errors, so I don't know how many. Let's see how many of those runs were earned runs. Because at least one of them was unearned. So the Gamecocks got some help. Appalachian State is 0-4. They're not very good.
All right. The Gamecocks, as you mentioned, go to 4-0. They're scheduled to play Winthrop tomorrow, but that one's going to be iffy because of the weather, no doubt about that. And we'll be back, give you some recruiting from here in Atlanta in a moment. Okay, we're back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network coming up. Monty Lee will join us talking about Clemson baseball. Also, bottom of the next hour, Chip Weil from Darlington, his first appearance of the NASCAR season with us on a Tuesday NASCAR night after the big race at Daytona over the weekend. Also, comments from USC from their win today over Appalachian State. And our phone number, 800-956-7266. The recruiting report for you now. Lakewood defensive end Tyreek Johnson got the call he'd been looking for on Monday from Will Muschamp at USC, offering him a scholarship. He's a lifelong USC fan, so he was very excited to get the offer. Asked why he didn't just go ahead and commit. Well, he does want to take a couple of weeks and let his parents think about some things with him, and he actually wants to do the commitment in person when he does get around to do it. But he left no doubt that South Carolina will be his choice when he gets to it. Coastal Carolina also offered him interest from Clemson, Duke, and Alabama. His coach, Brian Jackson, says he's a very good player, had 89 tackles, 21 tackles for loss, and 10 sacks last season. Coach says he has excellent speed, great pursuit, very good first step, and really gets after the quarterback and the ball carrier. Defensive end Logan Rudolph from Northwestern picked up Baylor, Illinois, and Iowa State yesterday in terms of offers. Some others are USC, Oklahoma State, North Carolina, Florida State, Tennessee, Penn State, Notre Dame, Michigan, and Nebraska. He was at Florida Saturday and Florida State Sunday. He's going to Tennessee March 5th. No other visits planned after that. While USC has offered, Rudolph said he's got nothing going on with Clemson, has not heard from Clemson since the Wake Forest game last season. He does talk to South Carolina about every day, he said, Muschamp and Bentley, either on the phone or via Twitter. And he's excited about the interest he's getting from Will Muschamp. He said he is still open regarding the schools and no favorites at this time. But he said South Carolina has told him, Muschamp has told him that he is a priority for them, and they have a particular position in mind for him on their defense. He said they're calling him a priority recruit. He does plan to return to Columbia for a spring practice and possibly for the spring game. Last night, USC offered defensive lineman Josiah Coatney, Holmes Junior College in Mississippi. Alabama has also offered him. He's in the 2016 class. Also, USC offered defensive end DeAndre Johnson of Miami on Monday. Today, USC offered defensive lineman Romello Martin from Brooklyn, New York, wide receiver Ryan Jones of Charlotte. He's a North Carolina commitment, and linebacker Willie Gay of Starkville, Mississippi. Best of my knowledge, first player USC's ever offered out of Starkville, Mississippi. Just don't hear about that very much. Per his assistant coach, defensive end Michael McDaniel has rescheduled his official visit for USC from this coming weekend to March 19th. He was at Mississippi State last weekend for an official visit, and he might also be visiting Alabama before he gets everything lined up and decides on what he's going to do. Quarterback Jake Bentley from Opelika, Alabama, USC target, picked up an offer from LSU on Monday, so another big offer for him. And Chapman linebacker Landon Holden plans to walk on at Clemson this coming fall. All right, there you go with recruiting for now, and, of course, we'll be updating these and other stories on our website, sportstalksc.com, and on Twitter, use the hashtag STRecruiting, and that will take you to everything that we have in recruiting. K-Mac, how often in a typical day for you, I'm just wondering, statistically speaking, how often do you type in the hashtag STRecruiting there, hashtag and STRecruiting?
I very rarely do that, but I mean, I don't have to. I can just go to our feed and I see it. I keep up with what's happening. I keep up with the hashtag ST recruiting. I'm waiting for it to be the #1 trending topic on Twitter, worldwide trending, ST recruiting.
Well, you know, I'm going to do that one day. I'm going to do a video. You know how the kids now are doing announcements with videos. I'm going to do a special video one day that will send it trending. I don't know exactly what I'm going to put in the video just yet, but I'm going to get Spike Lee to produce it for me, just like these kids are using Spike Lee to produce their.
Yeah.
So that's my plan. That's my plan. Okay, we're going to hit a break, and I imagine when we come back from the break, we're going to have the national anthem going on here. So y'all stay tuned there to take it back just in case. Now, I thought about volunteering to sing the anthem for them today, but I think they've got somebody in place to do that. Anyway, we will be back with more in a moment. Okay, very good. Why is that not in mine?
Please welcome to the court, the 2015-2016 Georgia Tech Men's Basketball
I'm still good to bring it back. I haven't started the national anthem. All right, closing in on tip-off here in Atlanta. National anthem will be coming up shortly, and we'll send it back into the studios when the guys line up to do that. Hit a home run with Founders Federal Credit Union coming soon to Tigertown. Founders Clemson location will be open soon. For now, check out the 4 on-campus ATMs. Visit RelaxJoinFounders.com to see if you qualify for membership. All right, Pro, what do you see as the key or the keys for Clemson tonight?
Holmes has to go off. I like K-Mac. When he scores in double figures, they usually win. I think the other key, obviously, for Clemson is if your offense is a little bit in a lull, don't let your defense suffer. That's one of the things I think is a bugaboo for Clemson and South Carolina. When their shots don't drop, they hang their heads on defense. Can't do that. You don't get any brownie points for winning beautiful. If it has to be ugly, win ugly. So they should be able to keep their defense for the entire 40 minutes. Now let's see if they can get their offense together.
Yeah, and they were just kind of abused against NC State, and that's a big, strong, physical NC State team. Georgia Tech is not that big and strong and physical like NC State, but they are playing very well. The win over Notre Dame, and as I said earlier, they have this game circled because Clemson has won 11 of the past 12 games in this series, and that has the attention of the Yellow Jackets. Are playing at home. But if Clemson loses tonight, they're going to have to win the ACC tournament to get in. So they have to – these are must-win games now for the Tigers to get back into the bubble picture.
And Cohen, it's bubble night all over. I mean, if you look at Clemson there tonight in a must-win situation. You got to feel because of their RPI, if somehow, and I wouldn't put them past them for doing it, if somehow Alabama upsets Kentucky and Rupp, they're in the tournament. That's how I think strongly people think of Alabama because of their RPI, I think, in the 20s. Vandy in Florida, this may be the elimination game tonight, Vanderbilt at Florida. Whoever loses, just forget about it. And, of course, LSU is on life support as they take on Arkansas on the road tonight.
God, what a disappointment that's going to be if they don't make the tournament. I mean, you know the committee wants to get Ben Simmons in the tournament at least once. And come on, LSU. Also tonight, Missouri plays at Ole Miss. And the rest of the ACC schedule tonight, let's tell you what that looks like besides Clemson and Georgia Tech. Just one game, Virginia Tech at Boston College tonight. Let's see if Boston College can get a league win. 0-14 in league play. Guys, I'm going to turn it back to you, let you finish off the hour. We're headed to the national anthem. Follow us on Twitter from here and our post-game coverage at sportstalksc.com.
All right, Corn, we'll check in with you at halftime if it is a speedy half there. We can get you before the top of the hour and check in at the half there from Atlanta. A lot to do in hour number 2. Stick around. Sports Talk continues here on South Carolina Radio Network.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
We continue here on Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Kevin McCrary, Professor Tom Hayes with you in our Columbia studios on Main Street in downtown Columbia. Phil Kornbluth in Atlanta, Clemson and Georgia Tech tipping off here any second now. They're going to get started in Atlanta. We'll keep our eye on that game, watching Alabama in Kentucky on another one of our monitors here. And Kentucky in first place in the SEC, a game ahead of South Carolina. The Gamecocks have a three-way tie right now for second, them, LSU, and Texas A&M, but they own the tiebreaker against those two. So if the SEC tournament were to start right this very second, the Gamecocks would have the number 2 seed. And if it ends up being a four-way tie between USC, Kentucky, LSU, and Texas A&M, the Gamecocks would hold the tiebreaker, and they would get the number 1 seed. So take that for what it's worth. Alabama, meanwhile, they have 16 wins, 7-7 in the SEC, and Avery Johnson in year 1 pro. You got to think he's a guy that some people are going to take a hard look at for Coach of the Year. Frank Martin will get a hard look, too, with what he's done at South Carolina. They're kind of in uncharted waters. I think they have their most regular season wins right now at 22 from the mid-90s. We're going back to the Eddie Fogler heyday when the Gamecocks had this kind of run. Now, they don't have that kind of team. This isn't the 95, 96 Gamecocks with Melvin Watson, B.J. Mackey, and Larry Davis. They're not that kind of team, but they are winning. They're finding a way to win.
Well, I think the big key, though, unlike that team, I think this team is better suited for ugly NCAA play because they rebound. That team that South Carolina had back then was a surgical team. They slice you up with their 3 guards, but if it got to be up and you needed an offensive board, you may not get it. So, and of course, Ryan Stack was 6'10", but he stayed out on the perimeter, so they were a perimeter-oriented team. But, Coach of the Year awards came out. You and I both know it depends on what the preseason expectations were. South Carolina was expected to improve and at least be an NIT team. Alabama was on nobody's radar because they said, well, they got to rebuild. The coach was recruited for this style. They bring in a pro coach who's never coached in college, and then boom. His enthusiasm, Avery Johnson, if you've never seen him in either NBA or as a coach or in an interview, he bubbles enthusiasm almost. You might want to compare him to Dabo Swinney, quite frankly. And I think that enthusiasm is poured into this Alabama team. They're playing way above what people expected.
Yeah, and they've knocked off some top 25 teams this season and certainly playing very well. They'll have their hands full at Rupp tonight against Kentucky.
Yeah, they beat Wichita State. They beat Notre Dame. On a neutral court, they lost to Oregon by 4 points.
Beat South Carolina.
And beat South Carolina.
One of the 5 losses for the Gamecocks. So he has done very well in year number 1 in Tuscaloosa. We're going to continue here on Sports Talk after a quick timeout. We're going to head out to the Sports Talk guest line now and welcome in Clemson baseball coach Monty Lee on the line. And the Tigers coming off a opening series win over Maine, won 2 out of 3, the final 2 games in that series. And, Coach, I know it always feels good to get that first series out of the way.
Yeah, it really does. Our guys, we scuffled a little bit in game 1. Things just didn't go our way, and Maine played really well, pitched really well in game 1, and came up a little short. And then I was very proud of how our guys bounced back on Saturday and then on Sunday, and we played very well and found a way to win the series. You
played a lot of guys this weekend. That kind of the benefit of a 19-2 game, you can clear the bench a little bit, but you were able to get in-game action look at a lot of different guys on your roster.
Yeah, that was one of my goals going into the weekend, was to try to pitch as many different guys as I possibly could out of the bullpen to get a look at how those guys would perform under pressure, and also try to play as many guys positionally as I could. And we were able to accomplish that. We were able to get, I believe, 14 different position players into the ball game over the course of the weekend, and we were able to pitch a number of guys. So worked out really good for us, and it was good to see so many guys be able to contribute to the 2 wins on Saturday and Sunday.
Well, tell me, is this something you'll do your mix and match depending on the pitcher, or have you decided already that you got a set 8 position players you're going to play every time out?
I think we're still like a lot of ball clubs. We're still trying to figure out a couple of our roles, whether we platoon offensively in a couple different positions, or whether we just go with the hot hand. And same way on the mound, do we have a couple guys that are clearly defined as short relievers, long relievers? We feel pretty good about them, but we do have. Heck, we've probably got 3 or 4 guys that didn't start in game 1 or game 2 that could play for us, and that's one thing we tried to do. We moved in a different DH on Saturday. We played, I believe, 5 different guys in the outfield over the course of the weekend. So we do have a few guys that we can platoon with. We can go with more a defensive matchup, more of a defensive lineup, or more of an offensive lineup, and that's kind of what we tried to do this weekend, was just look at the matchup. We pitched a freshman on Sunday, so we went a little more defensive in the outfield. My infield is pretty set. And then on Saturday, we play more of an offensive lineup. So we just tried to kind of, base it on the pitching matchup and what we needed to do that day to help us win the game. And that's what we tried to do. And it worked out good for us. Into those games.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. I think we've talked to you before, and you said, you'd like to tailor a team, look at the ballpark dimensions, get your team tailor-made for the ballpark and its dimensions. So as you're critiquing your players, how would you critique the coach as you look in the mirror over your first 3 games as the Clemson head man?
Well, I would say that the thing that I was most proud of is that our guys competed every single pitch for 9 innings on each game. And that was the thing that I was most proud of. And that was one thing that we really tried to preach to our guys was, look, stay loose, stay relaxed, go have fun and play, stay focused and play pitch by pitch for 9 innings and let's see where we wind up. And I think our guys did that. I'm still in year 1 trying to observe and learn and coach as hard as I possibly can. And we're trying to throw as much as we can at our team and our players to help them get comfortable with how we teach things and how we want them to do things. But also, heck, I'm still trying to learn our guys. This weekend was the first opportunity that I've seen my team compete against somebody else. Mm-hmm. And you learn a lot in that scenario. And that's one thing I think most coaches in college baseball will tell you in year 1, you don't really know what kind of team you have until there's somebody else in that other dugout. So I'm still trying to learn and evaluate our team. But I think overall, I think our guys responded well, to what we were trying to accomplish and what we were trying to get them to do based on the roles that we put them in, the situations we put them in. I think our guys did very well.
You guys hit 2 home runs over the weekend. Pender hit a home run. Seth Beer, who, by the way, has the best name in baseball, I think, Seth Beer. He went deep. Is that about do you expect this team to hit for more power as the season progresses, or are you guys going to have to manufacture a lot of your runs?
Again, I tell you one thing that I have noticed is, depending on the day, the ball doesn't always carry here. This isn't a ballpark where the ball jumps out of the ballpark. You got to hit it. You got to hit it pretty good to get it out of here in certain parts of it, especially to right and straightaway center. You got to hit it. So I don't think we're going to be a team that hits a pile of home runs, but I do think we're a team that's going to hit. I really do. I think we've got guys that have pretty good offensive approaches. We've got guys that can hit the ball in the middle of the field. So I do think that offensively we're going to be able to score runs. Will we hit a lot of home runs? I don't know if we'll hit a bunch of home runs, but we do have some guys with power. You look at Okie. Okie's got some power. Chris Williams, our first baseman's got some power. Seth Beer's got a lot of power. Eli's got some pop. I could see him hitting 7 or 8, maybe 10 home runs. Weston Wilson could hit 7 or 8 home runs. So we've got some guys that do have a little bit of pop, but, will we hit 100 home runs? Who does anymore,
right,
to be honest with
right.
you? Could we hit 60, somewhere in that 60, 70, range? I could see that. I don't know yet. But I think we'll hit some. I wouldn't say we're a home run hitting ball club. But we do have some guys that have some pop.
You mentioned White. He had a nice weekend, hit 300 at the plate, 4 for 4, stealing bases. He's probably want that green light a little bit more.
Well, we give him the green light. Yeah, we get. Our rule is with Eli is the only thing that we can do is take it off. So, and we didn't. We let him run. Eli's a really dynamic athlete. I mean, he is a guy that can really run and. He's a shortstop. He can hit. He can hit all fields. He's got some power. I mean, he's a guy that we definitely expect to get drafted pretty high this year, and very, very lucky to have him. But he is a guy that we want when he gets on base. We want him to utilize his tools like we do any player. We want to get the most out of their skill set and their tools, and he's a guy that should steal a bunch of bases for us this year.
Talking with Clemson baseball coach Molly, you guys are off until the weekend. You have James Madison coming in. What do you know about them?
Well, they've got a first-year head coach there as well, and Marlon Eikenberry, who was the head coach at VMI for quite some time. Very good baseball man, and I'm familiar a little bit with James Madison coming from the CAA. We were in the same league with those guys, and they're typically a fairly offensive team. They're fairly young on the mound. We do know they're going 2 left-handers Friday and Saturday and a righty on Sunday. So, that'll be another, kind of a unique challenge for us because, this past weekend with Maine, we only saw 1 left-handed pitcher, all weekend. So we're going to have to make some adjustments to the left-hander. And besides that, we're looking forward to building on what we did off Saturday and Sunday. Hopefully we'll get quality starts out of our starting pitching and our bullpen do exactly what it did this past weekend, which is pound the strike zone and limit our walks and give our defense a chance to make plays behind them. And I think if we do that, if we're consistent on the mound and defensively, I do feel like we have a chance to score runs, and I feel pretty good about this weekend.
Monty, always a pleasure to talk to you. Best of luck this weekend. We'll catch up with you soon.
All right. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Anytime. Monty Lee, the Tigers 2-1 as they get ready for a weekend series against James Madison beginning Friday afternoon. Our thanks again to Clemson coach Monty Lee for joining us. We will hear from Gamecock skipper Chad Holbrook, his post-game comments following a 5-0 win over Appalachian State. If you're just tuning in, the story of that game, freshman right-hander Adam Hill making his first career start, and he made the most of it. Struck out 11 as the Gamecocks knocked off Appalachian State 5-0. 6 just 2 hits, didn't walk anyone. Threw 86 pitches, 59 of them were strikes. So a nice start there to his career, midweek start for the Gamecocks. They have another one tomorrow against Winthrop. Very different. Normally teams play just weekend series. They play 3 a week and then kind of ease into 5 a week. But the Gamecocks coming out of the chute playing 5 games this week after playing 3 last week. So that jumping right into the fire. We'll see if they get it in. Tomorrow it's going to be a little cooler and a little more windy. There's some gnarly weather moving throughout the southeast, but as of now, and Chad Holbrook was on the show last night, and he thought they'd get today's game in, and they did, and he thinks they're going to get tomorrow's game in, or he did at least when we talked to him yesterday. But we will hear from him coming up shortly. We have Chip Wild, president of Darlington Raceway, coming up after the bottom of the hour. He is going to share his thoughts on the Daytona 500 and the upcoming race in Atlanta. And Pro, you've got your eyeball on Clemson, Georgia Tech, and Kentucky, Alabama, along with other games.
Kentucky, as you may suspect, out rebounding Alabama, but Alabama hanging tough, down by 5. Clemson and Georgia Tech, a nip and tuck affair early in this ball game. Clemson's defense sort of porous against Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech has been able to shoot a high percentage. I think they're shooting something like 50 or 49% at this juncture, and they've got a 1-point lead. So it'll be interesting to see if Clemson can put the pedal to the metal and see if they can't open up a little daylight here, because we all know, K-Mac, if you're the better team on the road and you let the underdog stay in the game at home, you're liable to have, no pun intended, a tiger by the tail if you don't watch out.
Well, and they're going to get Georgia Tech's best shot. Tech's playing well, and the way this series has gone, they played just 10 days ago, and that's always tough. Playing a team twice is hard anyway, but playing a team twice in just a couple of weeks. We saw this earlier this season. South Carolina went to Alabama and got blown out. They played them just a couple of weeks later, beat them at home. It's hard to beat a team twice in a season anyway. That old adage is a cliche because it's true. It is hard to beat a team twice in a season. Again, using a local example, South Carolina beat Missouri at their place and had to go to Mizzou and play them at Mizzou's place, and it didn't turn out so well. It is just tough, but when the scatter report's fresh in their mind and the other team's playing well, but Clemson's playing for its life, at least its NCAA tournament life, and they've got to win this game or they're going to have to go into the ACC tournament in D.C. and try to run that table, and good luck there. That's not going to be an easy task, and they wouldn't have a very good seeding. Well, they wouldn't have a terrible seeding, but they would probably have to play on Wednesday for sure.
But you almost like your chances a little bit better to win the ACC tournament because it's out of the it's off Tobacco Road for one of the
the officials will still be going for the blue and the powder blue, no doubt about it. We've got Chip Wild coming up next.
Information. Information. Information.
We welcome in Chip Weil, president of Darlington Raceway. He's on the Sports Talk hotline now. As we had, you couldn't ask for a better start to the season. I know you love great racing. I know you love great drama, Chip, and we got all of that at Daytona.
Yeah, what a great way to start the season. You know, we kind of use Daytona as our barometer. You know, if we have a good start to the season with a great race at Daytona, it kind of sets the tone for the rest of the season. And holy cow, I don't think we could have asked for a better finish. Closest finish in Daytona history. It's like 1/1000 seconds. So, you know, a really good week down in Daytona. We opened up that new Daytona Rising, the first motorsports stadium in the world, and it was good. I feel like we're on the right path for 2016.
Now, was that the closest race just at Daytona, or was that closer than the one with at Darlington a few years ago with Ricky Craven and one of the Busch brothers, Kurt Busch?
Yeah, no, we still hold the closest finish. So I think it'll be impressed to ever beat that finish at Darlington. But it was the third or fourth closest finish in NASCAR history, but the closest finish in Daytona. So. You know, that outside line really didn't work all day. People wanted to hug at the bottom, and Kevin Harvick looked like he gave Denny a great push at the end. And, you know, the 20 had to make a decision. Matt Kenseth was on the bottom, and it looked like the outside was making a run, so we went up there and tried to block, and I think he just mistimed it and got shuffled back. And then the race to the finish line between Denny Hamlin and Martin Truex Jr. was one for the ages. Just a fun race, and really the vibe in Daytona from the time I got there last Sunday through this Sunday was really good. There's a really good energy in the garage. You know, we sold out the grandstands, the opening of the new stadium. It was just a great week and a great way to start the season.
Well, you know, it all comes down to the driver, his ride, if he's comfortable with the track layout, that sort of thing. But when you win a race like this, starting off, and you're Denny Hamlin, mentally, where is your crew right now?
Well, I mean, you got to take a deep breath because you know you're already locked into the chase. So you got the rest of the year until we get to Richmond the week after the Bojangles Southern 500 to kind of get ready for that championship run, and it takes a lot of pressure off. So they got 25 weeks now where they can show up to the racetrack with really nothing to lose. They can take more chances. They can try different setups. It gives the crew and the crew chief an opportunity to really try to put themselves out there rather than still trying to figure out how they're going to lock themselves into the chase. So, in my opinion, it gives them a competitive advantage.
It was very strange. I know it had to be for you too, watching that race, and then you're looking at the leaderboard and not seeing the number 24 car with Jeff Gordon in it.
Yeah, you know, Chase Elliott, kind of a changing of the guard, so to speak, sat on the pole, and unfortunately ran into some trouble early. But, you know, Chase is going to do a good job. He's from a great pedigree. His dad's a Cup Series champion. He's already won an Xfinity Series championship, and the kid he gets it. He gets it both in the race car and his obligation to the fans. You know, it was a little weird not seeing Jeff Gordon behind the wheel, but rather in the broadcast booth. But I thought Chase did a good job. You know, handling really came into issue on Sunday. That was a factor where it usually isn't there. You know, you heard drivers lifting off the throttle and really talking about handling issues, where at a place like Daytona and Talladega, you typically don't have that. And I think Chase unfortunately got caught up trying to overdrive the car early in the race and got spun out and then hit the grass and then ruined his day. But, you know, we're going to be talking about Chase Elliott a lot. He's a great young kid. He's a great talent, and he understands his obligation to the sport, and that's something that that drivers nowadays really are focusing on, and I think it's a good thing.
Why do you think the handling was different this year?
Well, I think the weather played a huge factor into that. It was pretty chilly. Like, I wore my jacket up until Sunday just about the entire time. and those cars were set up for about 15 degrees cooler than it was, and I think the age of the track, they repaved in 2010, I believe, and it's starting to get those characteristics that the drivers like. But when you're racing in a pack like that, somebody lifts in front of you, it's like being on the highway and somebody slams on the brake half a mile in front of you. By the time it gets to you, you're stopped. And I think that's how they are, and it's hard to be doing that at 200 miles an hour.
Now, as far as the Busch brothers are concerned, obviously some injuries last year and some off the track problems. You see them in the chase for the duration?
I do. I think that Kyle certainly is one of the fan favorites, or one of the favorites in general, to win the championship again for a second consecutive year. That team has certainly hit its stride, and Joe Gibbs Racing has proven that they're going to be a force to be reckoned with this season. And then Kurt, he signed a new deal, got a new sponsor. I feel like he's in a really good place in his life. There's not a lot of turmoil around Kurt right now, and I've said this for a long time. Kurt Busch is one of the most talented race car drivers in the garage. He has more raw talent than 99% of the drivers. If he can get his head screwed on straight, he's going to be one of those guys we're going to talk about a lot. And I feel like he's in that place right now. Looks like the Busch brothers you're going to have to get through both of them to get to Homestead.
It brings up something to talk about, really. But I'm one of those that feel, because of the reflexes and really, especially when it's warm, the stick-to-itiveness and just the pressure of driving maybe 500 miles on an oval, they are athletes. So
there's no question.
Because
and anybody who doesn't believe they're athletes, come to Darlington Raceway on Labor Day weekend, climb behind the wheel of a 3,400-pound stock car and get and race 500 miles.
Right.
I think we had a barometer in one of those cars, and it got up to about 150 degrees.
That's all.
These guys are all true athletes. Jimmy Johnson's about to do his first Ironman. I mean, these folks are very focused on fitness, and it wasn't like that 20 years ago. But I think just like with golf and Tiger Woods, when you have athletes who are upping their game, you got to up your game. So these folks are really focused a lot on what they can do outside the car to make them better in the car.
That was my question about being an athlete. After his injury, looked like Kyle put on a few pounds. Now, if you're the crew chief and you look, wait a minute now, when the last time we saw you, you were about 10 to 15 pounds lighter. Do you have to do this may sound like a silly question, but anything you have to do with the car if your driver shows up and he's a little bit heavier than you thought he was?
Oh, well, they weigh in Daytona in January, and then they weigh in Daytona in July. And if you weigh a certain amount or over a certain amount, you don't have to put ballast or weight in the car. If you're under a certain weight, you do have to put weight in the car to make sure that all the things are equal. So a guy like Cody Stewart, great friend of mine, but let's face it, he's no svelte fella. He doesn't have to add any weight. For a guy like Chase Elliott, who weighs maybe $125 soaking wet, he is going to have to add a little bit of weight to his car in order to keep the competition equal.
All right, before we let you go, let's peek ahead to the race in Atlanta this weekend. Your early Tuesday night pick to win the Folds of Honor Quick Trip 500.
Well, this will be the first time since Darlington we've seen this low downforce package. You're going to do that at every racetrack this year outside the restrictor plate races. I think you're going to see the same cast of characters up front: Jimmy Johnson, Kevin Harvick, and certainly the Joe Gibbs guys, Kyle Busch, Matt Kenseth, and Carl Edwards, along with Denny Hamlin. Those are the folks that we're looking to be fast this week, but we'll see. It's a clean slate. We'll see who comes out of the gate strong.
Sounds good. We'll talk to you next week, Chip.
All right, thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.
Chip Weil, president of Darlington Raceway, talking a little racing with us. Great race in Daytona, so a nice start to the season. They finally got some, I know it was chilly, but they got a good weather weekend. It seems like Daytona the past couple of years, they've had rain delays. They've had to finish it either last year it was like 1 a.m, I think, when the fiery conclusion of that race came. And then the year before that, I think they had to finish it on Monday. There was another fire on the track in one of those races. They had a pretty uneventful weather pattern, at least for the Daytona 500 this year, and a great finish. Again, it just came down to 1/100th or a tenth of it. Was a photo finish there, but not as close as the race in Darlington several years ago. We're going to be back. Some comments from Chad Holbrook following the Appalachian State victory. All right, the final minute before halftime in Atlanta, and Clemson on top of Georgia Tech 44-32. We'll check in with Cornblue when that one goes to the half. Let's check in with Chad Holbrook following the Gamecocks 5-0 win over Appalachian State to move to 4-0. Adam Hill, an impressive outing on the mound. The freshman righty striking out 11 in 6 innings of work, only allowing 2 hits. Let's listen in on what Holbrook had to say.
Well, it was was a good win for us. I thought that the story of the game was obviously our pitching staff, and Adam Hill was terrific in his debut here at South Carolina. And ever since we came back to school after over the holiday break, he's been like that about each and every time out. It's been really, really fun to watch him grow and develop. We thought when we signed Adam that we were getting a kid that had a bright future here, and I think you can see why we thought that today. He performed extremely well. 11 strikeouts in 6 innings and no walks. Incredible performance by him. And Reagan and Colton kind of closed it down and threw well behind him. We didn't swing the bats that much today. Did enough to win. And anytime you can win and some of your better hitters didn't really scratch the surface from a hit standpoint, I guess that was a good sign. And good to see Gene in his first start of the year get 3 hits and executed a bunt and executed a slash and got a hit there in his last at bat. So that was neat. And Jonah got a big hit there on a 3-0 kind of ball in the middle to get another RBI there. And so all in all, a good day. We got to play better though. We got to swing the bats better, I should say. I thought we played clean. We really played good defense, and our pitching was the story of the game. But we got to swing the bats a little bit better than we did today, and I think that we will.
You talked about what he did today out there first, but what works when he has things working out there? What works for Adam on the mound?
Well, you can't just sit on one pitch against him. His breaking ball is good and hard, and he's got some giddy up on his fastball and the groove there for a while, and he had great command. When he's got great command, he's tough. Because he's got a good changeup, he's got a good breaking ball. He located his fastball well tonight. Threw some fastballs in, and I thought were outstanding. And the umpire was giving maybe some, maybe a little bit off the plate, and he was taking advantage of that as well. And so kudos to him. I mean, it was a very mature performance for a freshman, and you don't see that all the time.
You mentioned Sunday that Hill was probably in the conversation to be one of the Sunday starters. What did today do for him in terms of maybe moving to the weekend?
Well, I think we got 4 weekend starters. That's kind of my stance on the matter, and I think you saw that today. He's always been in the conversation for that, and I mean, we're not gonna, we're gonna stay the same this weekend as we go forward, obviously. And he threw 86 pitches, which is a clean first outing in regards to that, but. We'll have him ready to go next week, probably about the same time. And but we'll see. I mean, that's ongoing. We don't have to throw the same 3 guys every weekend. But right now, I like him throwing where he is. We're not putting too much pressure on him. He's got something that he can handle. And believe me, if I think he needs to be on the weekend, that's where I'll put him. But right now, we got a pretty good rotation going.
You mentioned offensively. I know it's only been 4 games, but you got a couple of guys who are scuffling a little bit. At what point do you kind of worry about those guys? I know it's probably not at this point, but how many games in, how many at-bats do you think?
Well, there are guys. I mean, if you're talking about Dom, Dom was 0 for 3 today. It's not really a big deal, but Destino's been scuffling and DC's been scuffling, obviously. But we're going to play our guys. I mean, they're our players. They're our guys. And, we do have some depth, and we do have some guys that we can put in there from time to time. But I'm not worried about our team offensively. I think I have some good hitters in there. I want them to calm down a little bit more. I think they're trying a little bit too hard, get off to great starts individually. And, they're going to keep getting at bats. But that's not an issue. I know Alex Destino can swing the bat. And, if he should have had 3 hits on Sunday, and he's kind of, I wouldn't say panicking. He's just pressing a little bit, and he wants to go up there each time and get 2 hits and 1 at bat. And I keep telling him that's impossible. He can't do that, but he'll be fine. He'll get it going when we need him, and when the chips are down and when games are on the line and we're playing some of the best teams in the country. I have a lot of faith that all our hitters, but especially Alex, will be a big threat for us.
Gamecock skipper Chad Holbrook, courtesy of GamecocksOnline.com, USC 4-0. They'll play Winthrop tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock at Founders Field. If you bring your basketball ticket to Founders Field, you can get in for free if you're going to do the double dip, because the basketball team plays Tennessee at 9 o'clock at Colonial Life Arena. Be right back. Georgia Tech busted a 3 at the end of the half to get it within single digits, but Clemson in control 44-35. Jerron Blossom game. He's got some game again tonight. 17 points at the half. Has a couple of rebounds, 2, 3 of 4 from 3, 7 of 11 from the floor. Has an assist, has a blocked shot, has a little bit of everything as he continues to fill up the stat sheet. Let's go to Phil Kornblut, who is in Atlanta, taking in the action. Corn, and the Tigers got off to a little bit of a slow start. It was kind of back and forth for a little while, but they pulled away there as the half wore on.
Terrific first half performance by the Tigers, and they lead the half 44-45. And you mentioned Blossom game in the first half that he had. It was outstanding. He scored from every possible angle, inside, outside, hit threes, scored off of great feeds from DeVoe and Roper, and Tigers moved the ball extremely well. Had a very big finish to the first half, went on a big run to extend their lead. You mentioned the 3 that George's Hunt hit right at the halftime break. Unfortunately for Clemson, the Tigers had the ball for the last possession, and they ran a nice play, and Roper got a good look inside the lane, little left-handed push shot by him, and they had a follow-up, I believe, missed them both, and left time for Georgia Tech to come down the court, and George's Hunt, who's a terrific player, hit the shot at the buzzer to give Georgia Tech a little bit of life going into the locker room. Blossom game, 17 points, 2 rebounds. Ty Hudson, during the middle part of the first half, he came off the bench and gave the Tigers a lift. He had 8 points, hit 2 threes, had an assist as well. DeGite has had a good half, 3 for 3 from the floor, a couple of rebounds. He's got 6 points. Tigers are shooting 53%. Tech is shooting 50%. George's Hunt leads the Yellow Jackets with 13. Tigers with 22 points in the paint, also getting a lot of help off their bench with 19 points off the bench. So I got to believe that Brad Brownell has few complaints at this stage. Just keep up the defense. If they can play defense in the second half here like they did at Clemson 10 days ago, now they'll win this one going away. I like the way the Tigers are moving the basketball. They're playing unselfishly. They've got 15 assists on their 18 baskets, guys, and I mean, that's what you just like to see in your offense, that kind of movement, making the extra pass and looking for the guy cutting to the basket.
I thought it was good that they had some fast break points, Phil, because those easy baskets help you. And, you know, Blasingame is going to get his, but Ty Hudson's 2 threes, I think, really, those fast break points and Ty Hudson is the story of the first half of Clemson.
Yeah, he was a big lift for them coming off the bench. And I tell you who else has played well is Gabe DeVoe. He's got 3 assists to go along with 5 points, and he hit a big, long outside 3 for him as well. So, again, the bench guys giving the team a big lift tonight.
Horn, we'll look for your story and your post-game reaction from the Tiger locker room at sportstalksc.com, and we'll see you back here in studio tomorrow night. Thanks to Larkin Belton behind the glass pro. Have yourself a good night. Kevin McCrary here. We'll talk to you tomorrow, same time, same place, here on Sports Talk.